Welcome to another exciting episode of Carving the Divine TV. My name is Yujiro Seki. I'm a director, writer, and the producer of the documentary Carving the Divine. Carving the Divine is about the Buddhist sculptors of Japan, and I'm ready to present it for the first time in the world. But before I do so, I thought it would be a great idea to introduce basic concept of Buddhism and the history of Buddhism, so that when you guys finally watch my documentary, you guys can watch at the maximum value. Today, we're gonna venture into the new world, the world of Myō-ō. I think most of the people only know Buddha and the Bodhisattva, and we have no idea what Myō-ō is. I heard Myō-ō is wrathful deity. I'm not sure. So I think we must talk to somebody who knows about the Myō-ō like back of his hand. So I would love to introduce to you Mr. Mark Schumacher. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Wonderful. Just in case for the people who don't know anything about you, please introduce yourself.
Well, I'm a Minnesota farm boy. And I moved to Japan in 1993. I've been living in Kamakura since then. And I fell in love with the Buddhist statuary here in the city. We have 120 temples and shrines. And since nobody could answer my questions about it in the literature about Buddhist statuary, the categories, who they are, what they represent, was 25 years ago, there was not a lot of information. I started out my own exploration and investigation into Buddhist statuary. And along the way, I've created a web page. And so after 25 years of investigations, I've found a whole new community of people who are interested in Buddhist statuary, from art historians and art collectors, and museum curators, and scholars of pre-modern studies. So the Buddhists and Bodhisattvas have really been very good to me.
Wonderful. Yes, let's talk about the Myō-ō. Myō-ō is often referred as Wisdom King, or anyway, so I don't know anything about it. I even pretend that I know something about it. So I have heard about the Fudo Myō-ō, Aizen Myō-ō, Kujaku Myō-ō. So a lot of Myō-ō. Again, it's confusing for somebody like me, beginner of a Buddhist statuary. Please enlighten us.
Okay, I'm going to switch quickly then to the slide, and let me put this up. So essentially, we've talked in the last two presentations about the highest level of spiritual consciousness and attainment, which is Buddhahood, and here we see at the very top. And right below that, we see the Bodhisattvas. And the third level of spiritual consciousness in Japan is called the Myō-ō class. And essentially, let's start again. At the very top are the Buddhas. This would include the Theravada traditions and the Mahayana traditions. At the second highest level are the Bodhisattvas, who are part of the Mahayana traditions. If we recall, Buddhism originated in India around 500 BC. For the first 500 years or so, it was a Theravada tradition, which was a monastic. You gave up your worldly life. You didn't marry. You lived the life of a monk. You gave up all the pleasures of worldly life. By the turn of the Common Era, we had the rise of the Mahayana school, which basically said anybody who practiced could achieve Buddhahood. You didn't have to be a monk. You didn't have to give up worldly life. You could get married and have kids, but you too could follow the path to Buddhahood. And those two traditions arrived in Japan around the 6th century. Buddhism entered China around the 1st, 2nd century, entered Korea around the 4th century, and then from Korea, it came to Japan around the middle of the 6th century, 552 or something like this. It wasn't until the 9th century, the early 800s, 805, 806, it wasn't until the early 800s that 2 Japanese monks, Kukai and Saicho, who had gone to China to learn, came back to Japan and introduced the esoteric school. It's called Myō-ō in Japan, the esoteric schools. And one of the major innovations of the Myō-ō school of Buddhism, so now we're talking 3 schools, the Theravada, the Mahayana, and now the Vajrayana, the Myō-ō school. One of the major innovations of this particular school was the introduction of Hindu deities into the Buddhist pantheon. So essentially, the Hindu deities are subjugated and converted into Buddhism, and then they serve as Buddhist protectors. And that's exactly who the Myō-ō are. The Myō-ō are Hindu deities subjugated. No, I shouldn't say that. The Myō-ō are Hindu deities who converted to Buddhism and now protect Buddhism. And essentially they are manifestations, they're wrathful manifestations of the Buddha and the Bodhisattva. And what they are meant to do is to scare, literally, I guess, scare people into accepting the teachings. That's why they look so fierce and wrathful. And they generally come with, my wife has just arrived home. They generally appear with weapons and holding weapons, and they might be adorned with skulls, adorned with snakes, adorned with animal skins, multi-headed, multi-armed, but they represent the wrathful compassion of the Buddha and the Bodhisattva. Now, here we see, as we had the last 2 presentations, we talked about the highest level of spiritual consciousness, the Buddha, and then the second highest level, the Bodhisattva, and now we're talking about the Myō-ō. Just a quick review. The Buddha class had the lump of knowledge, the third eye, elongated ears, and a very, very simple gown. Whereas the Bodhisattva class, who will surely become Buddhas, but for a time they delay Buddhahood to stay here on earth to help all living things reach salvation. The Bodhisattva class generally they still have the elongated ears like the Buddha, but after that they have princely clothes, they wear crowns, they have jewelry, they have bracelets, and they're very highly decorated, ornaments, and so on. Well, that's a way for you to identify the Buddha class from the Bodhisattva class. And now we're talking about the Myō-ō class, and here we're talking about deities who generally appear fierce and wrathful. They can be multi-headed, they can be multi-legged, and they usually have a flame halo behind them, because the flame is supposed to be the representative of the burning away of material desire, the burning away of human foibles, the burning away of anger, the burning away of lust, the burning away of ignorance. And in Japan, as we just mentioned, these deities were introduced around 810, 820 by Saicho of the Tendai school and by Kukai of the Shingon school. And the leader of the group, the most well-known and the leader of the group is Myō-ō. And his name literally means immovable. You cannot move him. You cannot move him in his faith. He is so strong in his faith, he's like a mountain. The wind can't blow it over. So he's usually also shown standing on a rock to show that you can't move his faith. He's also shown generally with a sword called the kurikara, which is the demon slaying sword, which cuts through ignorance. And he's also shown holding a lasso or a rope by which he can bind up evil. And he can also capture non-believers and draw them to the faith, the Buddhist faith. The Myō-ō, the best known, is accompanied by 4 others, and this grouping of 5 is known as the Godai Myō-ō, the Great 5 Myō-ō. The Myō-ō we can translate as wisdom kings, or mantra kings, or spell kings, magic spells, because the esoteric Buddhism, which arrived in Japan with their introduction to Japan, involves a lot of secret magical rituals. And in fact, the Shingon school and Tendai schools also introduced the mandala art form to Japan. And the Myō-ō are especially important deities that appear in the mandala. So here we can just look very quickly. Here's Gozanze. Gozanze apparently, according to the stories, subjugated the Lord of Destruction of Hindu mythology, Siva. Siva was subjugated by Gozanze. So often we can see this statues of a Gozanze will often show a figure that he's stepping on, and the figure is Siva. In other words, Hinduism is defeated, and now those Hindu gods become Buddhist believers and then protectors of the Buddhist faith. Here we Gundari Myō-ō. Let me see. What have I forgotten? 3 faces, 8 arms. Usually snakes are coiling around him. Here we see snakes up here. We have Daitoku Myō-ō, 6 legs, 6 arms on a white cow, which is a symbol of enlightenment. He has his power to suppress evil and create good, and he fights pain and poisons. Kongo Yasha Myō-ō is another one of them, 3 angry faces, 6 arms, and so on. And again, the statuary of these Myō-ō, it's plentiful, but there's much more statuary of the Buddhists and the Bodhisattvas. The Myō-ō are mostly prevalent in the mandala art form. Of others that not included the Great 5, others that are relatively well known include Aizen Myō-ō, the god of love, colored in red, like in America. In the West, we have Cupid with a bow and arrow. Aizen Myō-ō also carries a bow and arrow, and he helps to convert, what is the right word? To pray for love and respect of other people. There are many rituals that he's involved in. He is generally shown with 3 faces, 3 eyes, and 6 arms, and holding a bunch of weapons, including a bow and arrow. And again, Daigensui Myō here with the red fiery halo. Fire is meant, again, the burning away of material desire, the burning away of impurities. Kujaku Myō sits on a peacock. He wards off evil from poisoning or from calamity. And Ususama Myō here at the very end is not only for easy childbirth and avoiding the impurities of childbirth, but he's also considered a god of the toilet now. The impurities of the bathroom. And you will see posters of this particular deity in some bathrooms in Japan. So essentially the Japanese know about Fudo, this one right here, and Aizen. Those are the two most well-known of the Myō-ō. And again, the Myō-ō were originally Hindu deities adopted into the Buddhist pantheon who represent the wrathful compassion of the Buddha and Bodhisattva, especially of Dainichi Buddha. And here we can see that I want to show, here's a photo of Dainichi Nyorai, who is the central deity of the mandala. And the Myō-ō appear frequently in the mandala. Now, Dainichi's main mudra, his hand gesture, is the 5 hands of his, let me see, 5 hands, his right hand. Yes, okay, his right hand. The 5 fingers of his right hand represent the 5 elements of earth, water, fire, air, space. But these are inanimate.
Can I see you on the screen?
I'm sorry?
Can I see you? Because I want to see your hand and stuff, I think.
The 5 fingers of the hand represent the 5 elements, which are inanimate. It's only through consciousness, our mind, that we can understand the path to enlightenment. So Dainichi Buddha is always shown with this particular, the hand here and the index finger here is always shown to represent that consciousness brings together all of the material world, but we need our mind and we need our consciousness to attain enlightenment. And that's what these 2 particular mandalas represent. And Dainichi, again, is the central deity, and the Myō-ō are his manifestations of Dainichi, manifestations of compassion to lead people towards the light. But again, this is, the Myō-ō are part of the esoteric schools. And the esoteric schools thrived in the 9th, 10th, 11th century. But since then, the main schools of Buddhism are not esoteric. They're from the Mahayana tradition. They are the Pure Land schools, which worship Amida Buddha. And they are the Zen schools, which worship the historical Buddha. And they are Nichiren Buddhism, which venerates the Lotus Sutra, in which the goddess of mercy, Kannon, is a very important figure. So the mandala art form, which was introduced in the early 800s, includes a whole bunch of Hindu deities. Here we can see the Taizokai, the womb world mandala. There's over 400 different deities in here. And they include a lot of the Myō-ō, and they include the Tenbu, which we'll talk about in the next presentation, the Devas of India. Maybe show you some other photographs here of Fudo, the main Myō-ō of the pantheon. He usually holds his sword, his cutting through ignorance, and he holds his lasso to bind up evil or to keep you from straying away. Here we see an image of Fudo with his fiery halo, fire again to burn away material desires. Here it's shaped in the form of a red bird. Most Japanese probably don't remember the red bird as being one of the 4 animals of Chinese philosophy, which represent the 4 directions, and they represent the 4 seasons. The red bird represents fire and summer. So that's very apropos for Fudo. Here we have someone with a Fudo tattoo on his arm, again with the fiery halo. But in all cases, we see him with his sword and his lasso, which are his 2 main implements. Here's an image of the 5 great Myō-ō. Again, Fudo sits in the center because he is the main representation of Dainichi. Again, the Myō-ō are manifestations of Dainichi Buddha or other Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. The wrathful manifestations, wrathful compassion. It sounds funny, wrathful compassion. But so the mandala form, interestingly, if we look again, the four enlightened realms, which include the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas and the Arhats, as we talked about in earlier presentations, and the 6 realms of suffering, the 6 realms of karmic rebirth, there are no Myō-ō here. We don't see the Myō-ō. We do see the Deva, which we're going to talk about next time. The Deva are from the Hindu pantheon. They were subjected and converted to Buddhism. So I wonder where the Myō-ō fit in this scheme. I would guess that here is the Buddha. Since the Myō-ō are wrathful manifestations of the Buddha and Bodhisattva, I would guess that the Myō-ō should be included here in the enlightened, the realm of enlightenment, and not down here with the Deva. So if we go back to this, Buddhas at top, Bodhisattvas underneath them, and here the Deva at the very bottom here, they're part of the 6 worlds of suffering, 6 worlds of karmic rebirth. So where do the Myō-ō fit? So I've not entirely figured that out, but I would guess the Myō-ō would be here in the enlightened realm. Okay. Among the Myō-ō, Fudo is the best known. Here we can see among the zodiac, the signs of the zodiac, the rat, ox, tiger, Fudo Myō-ō is the patron of people born in the rooster. So you can see, here's your dates. But he's well known because he's linked to the zodiac. And when you go to temples today, you can buy amulets of all the deities based on your birth year and your patron Buddhist deity. Fudo is also, here again, we see the patron deities of the zodiac. Here's Fudo, and there's a little rooster next to him there. Fudo is also one of 13 Buddhist deities known as the Jusambutsu. And this grouping of 13 Buddhist deities is used in post-mortem burial rituals. So on the first week after someone dies, you would pray, you would have a ceremony devoted to Fudo. On the 14th day, you would have a ceremony devoted to the historic of Buddha. On the 21st day, every 7 days, to Monju, and so on, all the way out for 33 years. Although most families don't do it 33 years now, most families will probably do the rituals, the burial rituals, for only a first, second, or third year. But here again, we see that Fudo, as a Myō-ō, is the only Myō-ō in a group of Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. Only Fudo. All the rest are Bodhisattvas and Buddhas. The same with the protectors of the zodiac, patrons of the zodiac. Fudo is the only Myō-ō. All the rest are Bodhisattvas and Buddha. So that essentially concludes my overview.
Wow, that was very complete. Thank you so much for that. So I'm seeing that onmarkproductions.com website. So please tell us a little bit more about it.
That's where you would just click in your browser, and then once you get to that page, you'll see a picture, this picture of the Buddha, and then you click that, that'll take you directly to the A to Z index. And from there, you can use the index, or you can use the search box to find what you're looking for.
Wonderful. So can we switch up the camera?
Oh.
Real quick. So I would assume Fudo Myō-ō is just like a parent. What do you think?
You mean like a wrathful, loving wife.
Oh, okay. We all have a different experience, but maybe for somebody who knows what you're doing is wrong, and it's uncomfortable to tell you that you're doing something wrong, but they'll tell you you're doing something wrong anyway. That kind
Yeah.
of deity, huh?
So I call that wrathful compassion.
Okay, okay. No, beautifully said.
I mean, but the Myō-ō, again, the key point here is they came from the Hindu pantheon, and they were then adopted into Buddhism to become protectors. But essentially, they are the manifestations, the wrathful manifestations of Dainichi Buddha.
Wow. No, I didn't know. So thank you so much. So if you guys think this information is useful, make sure to subscribe my YouTube channel, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and like me on my Facebook, because that's how we do it in the 21st century. So thank you very much, Mr. Schumacher, for your presentation today.
My pleasure. See you
Oh.
next time.
I can see the fudo. Can I see the fudo? Your fudo?
He's got his sword and he's got his lasso. And he's standing on a rock because he's immovable.
Mm.